Okay, 1 minute warning.
Well, now I'm going to look my best. There we go.
I have a collared shirt on for the
I'd
first
say
time.
Shari's pretty much looking her best there. Check that out.
Yeah,
Love
that's. I like Penny's profile picture. It's very, I don't know, stylistic. I don't want to say what style it is, but almost like newsprint. It's pretty cool.
So curious now what mine looks like when I turn my video off.
You're leaning up against a brick wall. It's very cool.
Yeah, there's a.
What?
I don't know what your Facebook picture is, but I do know that Zoom picked up my Facebook profile picture and stuck it in there. And I was like, oh God, I needed to change it really quickly.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yours is very nice.
I just assumed that it just went to nothing.
I went in. You can go in through the Zoom website and change your default picture.
Just go in through the Zoom app.
I would do that. Okay, so it's 1:30 now. We should probably technically start. So I'll call to order at 1:30, and we'll recognize that we're conducting our business today on the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth people, because we're everywhere now. Because we're going through. Thank you, Janice. Okay, now we do have the agenda in front of us. However, there are a few late items. I printed out the old agenda, however, so I'm wondering if Wendy could review the items that we'll be hopefully adding to the agenda, or the materials that we'll be adding as a part of the whole package.
Yes, I can do that. So the first item is a revised amendment of the ACRD payment processing policy, and this is under 8A. So it's an amended report from the manager of finance or chief financial officer, and an amendment to the payment processing policy. So that will be under 8A. And we also have a late item. It's a meat slaughter licensing update, and that will be under 8G, I believe. 8G, correct.
Move the agenda with the additions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. McNabb. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Do we have any other comments? My daughter's right outside the outside window. I'm going to go close the window. I'll be right back. So if there are no more comments, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that's next up is item 3. Does anyone have any declarations, conflicts of interest, or gifts exceeding $250? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item 4. These are the adoption of minutes. Item A is the Board of Directors meeting dated May 13th, 2020. Go ahead. Okay, I see John McNabb moving adoption. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Thank you, Dr. Osborne. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item B, which is the COVID-19 Community Recovery Team meeting dated May 20th, 2020.
I'll move adoption.
All right, thank you, Director Osborne. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second. It's Tanya.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, and lastly, we have the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee meeting dated May 21st, 2020.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Director Cote, and we'll say Director Haggard is seconded.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
you have a
for the
question?
chairperson, they have John McNabb listed at the bottom, and it should be Mike Rattan.
For the advisory committee.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll adopt it as amended. How about that?
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, we have no petitions, delegations, or presentations. Correspondence for action. Doesn't look like we have any. There's one piece of correspondence for information under 7A. That's from the Vancouver Island Regional Library. We could adopt the or receive the information unless someone would like to talk about it.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Director Cote. Seconded by Director Cole. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, motion carried. That brings us to item 8, which is a request for decisions and bylaws. 8A is a request for decision regarding the amendment of the ACRD payment processing policy. So I believe this will likely be Terry. So please go ahead.
Hi. So in March, when the COVID-19 pandemic started and we were all working remotely, we had asked for a temporary solution to the hand signing of checks over 5,000 and EFTs. So we've been looking at all of our processes as we've been living in this remote state for a while now, and we would like to change the processing of the EFTs to be permanently by email approval, as there's other controls in place, such as dual authorization processes from a staff standpoint. We would like some more time to look at our check options after having a bit of discussion with our auditors. So originally the report stated that we wanted to make the change to be email approval for both checks and EFTs, but the revised report that I sent out, or Wendy sent out yesterday, stated that we're just actually asking if we can amend the EFT process at this time.
Any comments? Director McNabb.
Motion to concur with recommendation.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a seconder?
Second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Haggard. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the request for decision regarding the press release, the gas tax, GAC fund project 2019.
That's also me.
Yep.
So the federal gas tax funding that we receive has a communications protocol with it that has a number of different ways that we can do it. But we were thinking, because there was quite a few gas tax projects completed or started or utilized gas tax funding in 2019, that a press release recognizing the federal government's contributions to these projects would be a nice way of getting the message out. So just asking the board to direct staff to develop that.
Great, thank you. Any further comment? Director Cote and then Director Beckett, maybe?
Thank you.
Nope? Okay.
Oh, thanks. I'm really happy to see this come forward. A lot of people are not aware of what the gas tax is being used for and how it's being used. So really pleased to see this. Do you want the recommendation now, or?
Yeah, that could do.
Okay, I'll recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to develop a press release highlighting the 2019 projects that were supported by federal gas tax funds in the Alberni-Clayoquot region.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Director Cole? Okay, Director Roberts, you had a comment? Yeah, you still have to hit the unmute button. Okay. See if I can unmute myself.
There we are.
There
we are.
Yeah.
We got it now. Just a question with regards to the press release, and I know it's going to be developed. Will that show the total amount of funds that we did receive? Or is it just where it's going to be dispersed, the way it's going to be dispersed?
I think we were just planning on highlighting the projects that were done in 2019 using the gas tax funds, and thinking that we'd probably use this format every year thereafter, kind of reporting what we've done with it and highlighting what those funds are being utilized for.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is a request for a decision regarding the FCM Municipal Asset Management Program grant application.
That is me as well. So we had talked about this last year with the board, but when we went to apply, the FCM had actually issued out all the money without closing the application process, so it wasn't available. These building and asset evaluations are kind of the next step that we're feeling like we need to develop our asset management program. Right now, we've just used our in-house expertise to look at these conditions and create these asset appraisals. So it would be for all of the regional district buildings, including on the West Coast. And we request a resolution from the board to make that application.
Thank you. Do you have any comments or motions? Thank you, Director Haggard. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the Alberni Quayquart Regional District Board of Directors direct staff apply for a $50,000 Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program grant for building and critical asset valuation and assessment.
Thank you. And seconded by Director Johnson. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item D, the Sport Lake Volunteer Fire Department Asset Management Plan. This is the Terry show today.
It is for sure. So this is the second volunteer fire department plan that our asset management coordinator has developed. It is really just a baseline starting point for us. There are a lot of decisions with this plan that we're going to need to make as we progress through it. The cost of the service is high because of the shape of the service area being with the residents along the lake perimeter, so very long and narrow, which has at this point 3 halls, and each of those halls have multiple fire engines in it, so very costly. So one of the major things that we kind of knew before, but really from an asset management point is kind of the next step, is we need to determine whether we want to continue to operate with a 3-hall model, or if there's another way to provide the same level of service to the community, but maybe going down to a 2-hall model. So that will be that is part of the implementation plan, and part of what we'll work through with the fire chief, the regional fire coordinator, the director, and the community after this.
Sounds good. Any comments? Dr. Cote.
Thanks. Is there a timeline on when we need to start implementing, looking at going down to 2 halls, or how this would affect? There's really in-depth report here. I'm really quite satisfied with what's come back from the asset management point of view. Our costs are really extremely high for our fire department, and with the escalating cost of fire trucks and probably PPE as well is going to be escalating as we go into the future. So do we have any idea of what kind of timeline we're looking at?
I would say the sooner the better, as we are approaching those spots where we need to be buying more fire trucks. I also know that the department struggles with getting volunteers. So in terms of PPE, keeping up PPE and stuff, that we might be facing that as well. I would say next 2 years is probably a realistic timeline. This isn't some decision that's going to be made overnight. I think it's going to take a lot of base work first, especially regarding the closure of that or what was used to be maintained by MOTI, a road that kind of changes the access points to the community. So I think that's really going to be a starting point that we might need to try to figure out before we can really look at different hall models.
Thanks. Back to Director Cote, and
Thank
then
you.
Dr. Beckett.
Is there any kind of grants that could be available to help us to take a look at that and come up with a proper, because there's going to have to be a community consultation here as to why we're looking at possibly moving to 2 halls. So
yeah, we continue to look for grants for fire departments. Fire departments in general don't tend to be an area that grant funding becomes available, but we will continue to watch for something along those lines.
are there, so is there any opportunity maybe to work with First Nations in the area on building one of those fire halls and recruitment?
Potentially, I believe that right now Sashat First Nation actually receives fire protection from the city of Port Alberni, so it would be a larger discussion, but definitely open to all options. And I think the main thing is to try to get going with it and putting all the options out on the table to kind of make sure we know what areas of focus to start narrowing down some of these decisions.
So moving forward, I'd really like it to be like a wholesome study with First Nations included. Thanks.
Great. Are there any other comments? If not, there is a motion. Go ahead, Director Cote.
I'll make the motion then. Recommend the Alberni Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors adopt the Sprout Lake Volunteer Fire Department Asset Management Plan version 1.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roberts. Any further comments? Dr. McNabb.
Just wondering if, just a clarification, things like fire truck number 1, which isn't actually included in this asset management program, which has a value of $40,000 to $50,000. How does that actually, those kind of assets, where are they accounted for? If it's lost, is it replaceable?
Are you meaning the very old fire truck? Or
The Jeep, yeah.
We would not be replacing it. They do have a minimal maintenance budget, but in talking with the chief, they would not be looking to replace that asset if they were to lose it. They do have a maintenance budget for it every year, though.
But I'm wondering about, because it's not in the plan, is it actually covered by MFI or MIA?
Yeah, it is. It's also insured. Yes.
Yeah. Because
it is in the plan. It just wasn't really talked about. It's in the asset register for sure, and it's listed.
Okay.
We just didn't focus on it because it's not an asset that they plan to replace.
No, but they could dispose of it.
Yeah, at this point, that wasn't the fire chief's wishes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's got substantial value. It's just I didn't see it actually mentioned in there, but was hidden in a corner somewhere, I guess. Okay, thank you. I mean, lots of fire departments have those kind of assets, and they kind of get forgotten about, that they really do have some value.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. Are there any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item E, which is a request for decision regarding the ACRD Recollect Act or app contract with Apple and Google developer account contract. Is it Recollect or Recollect?
I'm pronouncing it Recollect as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, Mr. Chair, we've been working with Recollect to develop a recycling app for the region. In order to proceed, we need to enter into a formal agreement with them. as well as Apple and Google, so they can host the app and then allow Recollect to access and maintain it. And essentially, we provide the information to go on the app, and Recollect will help maintain it. And that's really it in summary. There is data analytics that we can get as well to help, highlight potential knowledge or education gaps that we can focus on. And it does appear to be the app developer of choice by local governments, as there's several others using it already. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So we do have two separate motions here as well. At least I think they should be treated separately.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Please go ahead. Director McNabb and then Director Roberts.
Okay, I would move that the ACRD Board of Directors authorize the board chair and the CAO to execute a 5-year agreement with Recollect for the development and maintenance of the ACRD collects recycling.
Second.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed that. Who was that? Director
Roberts.
All right, thank you. Okay, moved and seconded. I have Director Roberts. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to move the second part of it.
Okay. We'll
The ACRD Board of Directors.
Oh, you can't yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll come right to you. Director Shannon, did you have a comment or question?
Okay.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I know that on the agenda, it said that it was approved in the 2020 budget for some education, but this is a 5-year contract. Have we done approval for this stuff over the next 5 years in the budget? Like, has that been accounted for already, I guess?
Just wait for Terry to turn back on.
The manager of operations, when she developed the landfill contract, or the landfill budgets, did know that she was planning on this. So there is an education budget moving forward that I'm going to assume at this point includes that, because we had a great deal of discussion regarding that, and the budget does not go down. So yes.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple more questions, comments.
Okay.
When I was reading the contract, it said all the monies were in US dollars. And it looked like the same amount was what was on our report. So are we more?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's unless stated, and it is actually linked to Canadian. It is in Canadian. I can confirm that.
Okay, thanks. And then, so when this gets paid for, because I know there's a possible grant that you're still waiting to hear from to cover up to $7,500 of this. But then when the costs come in out of the education part, is this just for people that are getting collection, like participants, or is this going to be just cost shared by everybody?
Rob or yeah.
Sure, unless Terry's already weighed in, but yeah, no. This comes out of the solid waste budget. So it's all participants that fund the solid waste budget for both the AV and the West Coast.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Director Cote, you had comments or questions?
Thank you. Question regarding who's using this? Is it staff or is it their contractor that's going to be use this, or both? And will there be like monthly reports on it? Thanks.
Go ahead.
This app is targeted at the public. It's to help identify areas where to take materials and help increase our diversion efforts.
So is it weighed in then by staff or by the contractors?
What do you mean by that? Weighed in?
So is it viewed and is staff or is the contractor identifying who's using what and if there's suggestions if it's working or if it's not, or how it's working?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we provide the information to the app developer, and then they advertise it, and then it's an ongoing process. So it's not like it's a one-time thing and then the information sits there. As the programs and services change, then we update the information.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it stated in there something about that it did other things so that you could evaluate. I can't remember where it is here. So that it would evaluate and give us statistics, and I guess it's just of users then, or who's looking for things.
That was my understanding, is that it would be statistics about the people who've downloaded the app and how often they use it and that sort of thing. Just general metadata on the app.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's meant to be kind of passive information. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's outgoing information, but we can use how often people search things for our own internal management of services and education.
Okay. It would be good if we continue to look at that, because I think there are functions where if you, on the RDN one, if you plug in your address, it'll update and tell you the day before that it's garbage day or recycling day, that kind of thing. My dad could even use it on his iPad, so it was pretty good. Okay. Any further comments on the first motion, which has already been moved and seconded? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so that's the second one. Director Roberts, would you like to move the second motion?
I would. That the ACRD Board of Directors authorize the board chair and CAO to execute a contract with Apple and Google for the Apple and Google Play developer programs, which gives Recollect permission to create and maintain the ACRD Collects app.
Great. Director Johnson, you second? Okay. Any further comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, item F, the Cascadia Air Support Letter Request. Go ahead, Rob.
Chair, I can speak to this.
Yep.
So we discussed this one last week at the ABRA Advisory Committee meeting. And if the board recalls, a similar request went to the Long Beach Airport. And this is a new startup company based out of Victoria, looking to do an air taxi service between Victoria and Port Hardy. And so they wanted to operate at both Long Beach Airport and ABRA. The board's already given permission to support the initiative at the Long Beach Airport, but we had the advisory committee also review this for Port Alberni's airport. They are supportive of the initiative, but they would also like to have Cascadia come and be a delegation and learn more about their business plan. And so that's what the recommendation aligns with.
Director McNabb?
I just wondered if there's any discussion with regards to kiosk rental or anything like that. So like a receiving area for them and freight and other items. Have that been discussed at all?
We haven't had any detailed discussions with them. I think they're still developing their business plan and are kind of just looking to see where they could operate out of at this point.
Director Haggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to this conversation, the letter that was received from Cascadia was very vague. So the reason we wanted to invite them was to get more information about what their potential plans were and what they had in mind. So that would include things like freight or renting a kiosk, those kinds of things. We just wanted more information about what their proposed plans were going to be. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Would anyone like to move the Director Roberts? Go ahead.
Through the chair to Mr. Williams, what was the issue with regards to Cascadia Air being registered but not certified? Could you explain that a little bit?
Sure, it's actually certification of the airport. So Long Beach Airport is certified and therefore it is permitted to have scheduled flights. But Alberni Valley is not currently a certified airport. It's an aerodrome. And so we cannot have scheduled flights to the Alberni Valley Airport yet. Chartered flights are fine, but regular scheduled is not permitted at this time.
Thank you for that.
Director Bodner, go ahead.
When I was reading, thank you. When I was reading that information, it seemed to indicate, though, that once our airport was certified, then Cascadia Air could use it. Is that correct?
We are still trying to confirm exactly what their business plan looks like, but I think under this air taxi service, they could probably operate now at the Alberni Valley Airport because it won't be scheduled. It'll be on demand. And it's still to be determined if the board wants to certify the Alberni Valley Airport, as there's a bunch of requirements that come with it and potentially increased costs. And so that's to be part of the visioning exercise with the advisory committee and the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further comments or motions? Director Cote.
I'll make the recommendation that the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee recommends that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to respond to Cascadia Air outlining current air traffic authorizations at the AVRA, and that staff invite Cascadia Air to be a delegation at the next Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee meeting on July 23rd, 2020.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Haggard. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Great. Okay. That brings us to planning matters. So this is for electoral air. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chair, we have the late.
I missed meat slaughter.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that the recommendation in the additional item that the board is about to contemplate, the recommendation is to reply to the ministry instead of the minister in this case, just by the nature of the correspondence that we recently received. And that's a little bit different than what the board had on the books as a resolution already. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So who would we like to present this? Alex is not here, I don't think. So
Mr. Erg is
Mike? Yeah. So please go ahead when you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, so this is in relation a response from the province, the ministry that oversees the licensing for meat slaughter regulations or abattoirs, and they had some questions about how the board sort of envisioned the Class D license, and the letter also noted that Class E licenses are permitted now. There was a change in the regulation. So a Class E license allows for an individual farmer to process a maximum of 10 animals on his farm. The Class D license is something that certainly the Farmers Institute and the agriculture community has been asking for. It allows for more animals to be processed, up to 25, and it also allows farmers to coordinate, so it's not restricted to just animals from that farm. So I certainly recommend that we provide the information. And then they were also asking if this if the board intended this to apply to the entire regional district, which I think would be a good idea, and that was the intent when we started doing all of this work. So happy to answer any questions.
Director Shannon, do you have any comments or questions?
Sure, I do. Well, I guess my question is staff looking for direction on what we would like to be, like what we want the response to be to the ministry? Or have you guys kind of thought of, I mean, reading the report, it sounds like the gist of what I understood from ag meetings and talking to people is it's lovely that E is available, but D is what we're looking for. So hopefully this is just another step closer to actually getting designated. And I think for the reasons that Mr. Erg mentioned, but also because with a Class D, you can do sales to retailers such as restaurants and stuff that's not available with a Class E license. And I think that would be a big support system for local agriculture to be able to support local industry that way. So I guess my thoughts on this are, it's great to see that right now, but I would still like the letter to say we're still looking for that Class D designation.
And if I may, that's certainly our understanding
okay.
Of what the board wants to do, of what the farming community wants to do, and that's as staff we support, or proceeding and pursuing a Class D license, or the ability to have Class D licenses in the ACRD. So that's what we would be doing, and just providing confirmation that it should apply to the entire regional district.
If I may, Chair.
Yep, and then we'll go to Director Cote and then Director Roberts.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was my understanding too that it would go to the entire regional district, because through conversations with Farmers Institute or some ag meetings, there's kind of a separation between obviously the Valley and the West Coast with agriculture parts, but if we could try and bridge that with some things, including some of this, that would be wonderful. So yeah, I would say the whole regional district makes sense there.
Okay, thank you. Director Cote and then Director Roberts.
Thank you. We've been after this for years now. Looking at the COVID experience with slaughterhouses being shut down, this is important that we can allow our local farmers to actually provide resources for our community. Also, in the letter coming from Gavin Last from the ministry, second to last paragraph talks about Class A poultry slaughter. We did have a poultry slaughter in the Valley, and I believe it's closed now. I'm not particularly positive on that, but that is also something that we have had. And I know that licenses weren't transferable in the past. And I believe that the person that had the poultry slaughter was actually passed away. So I'm not sure where we're at with that, but also like to include when we ask for the Class E licenses or D license, DE, whatever the class. So we have D and E, that we also include poultry. Thanks.
So if I may, historically, there has been a Class A poultry license processing facility in the Alberni Valley. I'm not sure of the exact status of it. I think reading into Mr. Last's letter, he's saying at this time they wouldn't be looking at approving a Class D license for poultry, and I would recommend that the board treat that separately, and we can get some more information on that. The focus for quite a number of years. I mean, starting in 2011 with the agriculture plan, talked about this processing. So I just don't want to muddy the waters with the province and really pursue the red meat Class D license at this time. Would be my advice to the board.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Director Roberts.
Yes, thanks for that, Mike, and the other comments. After reading the letter, I would suggest, and I'm sure it's pretty clear to everybody, that the ministry is receptive to a Class D situation in the Valley, and in fact for the entire West Coast as well. So the entire Alberni Clayoquot Regional District would benefit, which is a good thing. And we don't know yet where the West Coast is going to be, but everybody is concerned about local consumption and having provision through different farms and perhaps poultry at some point with regards to supplying us locally. And I think it's a tremendous initiative, and I totally support it. And thanks for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Roberts. I have Dr. Shannon up next.
Thank you. Just a question for Mr. Erg. If we're available to get a Class E, if we applied and got that for now, does that hinder us for the potential of a Class D down the road if we wanted the E temporarily? Like, is it to go that route, or is it better just to skip the E and still stay focused on the Class D designation?
Well, I think with this letter from Mr. Last, it's the ability for farmers or individuals in the Alberni Valley to apply for a Class E license exists now. So the ACRD doesn't need to do anything about that, because there isn't a Class A or B slaughter facility within an hour's drive. So the Class D currently is not allowed in the ACRD, and really that's where I think our focus should be, is just also pursuing the Class E, and then people have the option. They can choose to apply for the Class E or the Class D, and it's really going to depend on the number of animals, and there is no limit as far as I know on the number. So it's not like one license for the ACRD. It's individual owners could apply for the licenses, and there could be more than one Class E or D license.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. We don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. There's been other communities that have been issued the Class D. Powell River and there's others. They were considered pilot projects, and this is what we're requesting, is that we also get that same designation for the same reasons that those communities do, and it has to do with distance and the well-being of animals and the ability to do that, do slaughter here. So thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments? We do have the motion, which is a recommendation to receive the letter from the Ministry of Agriculture and direct staff to respond to the same ministry. Director Shannon, and then Director Bodner.
I was just going to move the motion.
Okay, I'll check with Director Bodner then. Director Bodner, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to know if these go in, when this goes into effect, how is it monitored? Does the Department of Health check to see that these are running safely and humanely?
That's my understanding, if and when it starts up again, or if it starts up. Mike, if there's anything else to add, maybe go ahead.
No, the ministry is still responsible for issuing the licensing and monitoring.
Okay. Okay, Director Shannon, would you like to move the motion?
Yes, but let me just bring it up in front of me.
Okay. It was sent out by email. That might be the easiest way to find it again.
Okay. Okay. I would move that the Board of Directors receive the letter from the Ministry of Agriculture and direct staff to respond.
Great. Do we have a seconder? Director Cole, thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Alrighty. Okay, I'm just going to temporarily run to the washroom. Director Osborne, if you could take over chairing while I'm gone.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to move into planning matters that are for electoral area directors only. And the first is the development variance permit application for 10057 Colson Place.
So I can just give a brief explanation. So this is a development variance application. The board has looked at it once already at the previous board meeting. Neighbors and property owners within 100 meters have been notified. We have not received any impact or input from neighbors. The variance would be to vary the side yard, the east side yard setback from the current 15 feet to just over 8 feet. The Sport Lake Advisory Planning Commission met by Zoom on Monday and reviewed this application and also supported it. So, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Director Cote?
I'll just make the motion. Recommendation that the Board of Directors issue development variance permit DVD 20003.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any final comment on that? Okay, for electoral area directors, all in favor? Thank you. None opposed. Motion carried. And the second matter is the Sheeler Lot A on Pacific Rim Highway, also in Sprout Lake.
Yes, so this is a development permit, and it is a form and character development permit for a commercial property. So the property is zoned for storage and warehousing. Their intention is to develop the storage, including some closed storage over time, and construct a caretaker residence on the property. The Sprout Lake Advisory Planning Commission reviewed this on Monday and recommended that the board issue the development permit. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Any questions from anyone? Director Bodner.
Yes, in reading the about storage buildings, it was saying that they propose a monolithic structures. In the next sentence, it says that monolithic structures should be avoided. Is that because of aesthetic reasons?
Yes, and it's just the nature of some of the storage is that they are large, long buildings. So again, in their design and coloring, as well as some screening and fencing, tried to help break that up. The idea is that it looks as nice as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Cote?
Thank you. I'll move that the Board of Directors issue development permit DVD 20002.
Second.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Moved and seconded. Any final question, comment? Okay, for electoral area directors.
Was that just a question?
Oh, yes, Director Kelvin, whose last name is not
Roberts. Was that permit D Delta Paul Delta or Delta Victor Delta?
Delta Victor Delta. Oh, I think it's
Delta P.
Delta. Great, because it's a permit application. It's a development permit,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
not a variance.
Yeah.
I just wanted that clarified. I thought Director Cote said Delta Victor Delta. So firm. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it is moved and seconded, and I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. None opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, so then we are back to Chair Jack.
You noticed me. Okay.
Ah.
Okay. Did you finish up item A and B or just?
Yes,
just A?
so we're on to 9.2A.
9.2A. Great. Okay, this is an item for all directors. It is the West Coast Agricultural Initiatives Update and the 2020 Clayoquot Biosphere Trust Project. So please go ahead.
So this is a grant agreement with the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust, and it is one of the West Coast Agricultural Initiatives, and the regional district's portion of the funding would be through the regional planning function, the same as what we've been doing for a number of years in the Alberni Valley with the Ag Advisory Committee. And just staff recommends that the CAO be authorized to execute this grant agreement. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we can open it up. Any comments? If not, there's the motion. Director Roberts, please go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, you're still muted.
Apologize.
No worries.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Directors authorize the CAO to execute a grant agreement with the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust to engage in the action and community priorities around food and agricultural projects.
Nice. Seconded by Director Cole. Did you have a comment or just second? Just all right. Same thing with Director Shannon. Yeah. Okay. All right, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Okay, that brings us to 9.2b, the Coastal Agricultural Roundtable Terms of Reference. Oh, yeah.
So I could speak to this. So this is just the terms of reference for the Coastal Roundtable, which is acting as the West Coast Agricultural Advisory Committee. I just note the sort of and it was something that we meant to get to the board just before all of the COVID things started happening. So I apologize for that. The one thing I would note is that the term of the committee is for 1 year, and I think the idea of that came out of the members that want to be part of this committee. And then at the end of the year, we will look to see if the terms of reference or the way that committee functions should be tweaked or changed in any way, and we'll bring it back to the board. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions? Dr. Osborne, go ahead.
I don't have a comment or question, so if nobody else does, I'll move that the Board of Directors approve the terms of reference for the Coastal Agricultural Roundtable as presented.
Cool. Seconded by Director Cole, I think. And who has a comment? I heard someone say something. Dr. Cote? No?
Nope, just seconding.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? The motion carried. Awesome. Okay. That brings us to item 10, staff reports, 10.1. Would anyone like to pull anything out, including staff? Seeing none. Could we get a motion to receive the reports? It's just the schedule and the inspector's report. Director Cole? You so move? Okay. Seconded by Director Beckett. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. 10.2, no committee reports. 10.3, member reports. 911 Corporation, Director McNabb.
No report at this time.
VIRL, Director Cote.
Thank you. We have a meeting on the weekend, and libraries are scheduled to start opening soon in June. So people are very anxious to get their libraries open. I'm hearing things constantly about services that the library has provided in the past, and people are very excited about getting the library open. Thanks.
Yeah, on that, with this whole situation starting, I signed up for a card again because the last one I had was Aegis, and it was really easy to do it online. So there was a lot of good work being done by the library for online content as well. So hopefully
they're working with School District 70 as well.
Great. Okay, so that brings us to item C, the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. Director Minions.
Thank you. They held their AGM recently, last week, I believe. Gord Johns was one of the speakers and just spoke to, the advocating that's going on for local businesses and provided some updates. Next board of directors meeting will now be end of June, but we have had one since the last update, and really just kind of talking about general business, the surveys that have been going on in the Alberni Valley, how businesses are adapting, and anyone who's on the chamber's mailing list knows that the chamber has really been acting as an advocating role for businesses, but also just a conduit to information and trying to share changes as they're happening with federal and provincial programs as quickly as possible. So I think that's probably all. Thank you.
Okay. And next up is the Air Quality Council, Port Alberni. Director Botner, do you have a quick report?
Thank you. Yes, our last meeting was on April the 30th, and there was one wood stove exchange. The fall fair is canceled, and Anna is looking at new ways to conduct connecting with the public, such as using sandwich boards to talk about the venting and the wood burning restrictions, and coming up with some other ideas. In new business, Jenny presented her proposal about the $5 flat fee per load for yard waste, and we know that that's already in effect, and that will be reassessed again in 6 months. looking at curbside pickups and bins after the COVID is over. Some of the wording regarding the bylaws for regulating solid fluid burning appliance emissions was what constitutes a certified appliance. And as far as the burning is concerned, in looking at categories A and B, what also applies to normal farm use for regarding burning. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That brings us to the West Coast Aquatic Board. Dr. Osborne.
Thanks. Well, I'm happy to report that there was a governance board meeting on Monday that I attended via Zoom, and the subject of discussion was really around the PST Pacific Salmon Treaty mitigation. And some of you will remember that this is a long-standing discussion on the West Coast about how the remaining mitigation funds will be used. And there's been an attempt by many parties to try to get a coast-wide response. But ultimately what's happened now is the Nechalneth and the Area G trails have collaborated to develop a proposal for how remaining mitigation funds should be spent. And this doesn't include areas F and H, which are outside of the west coast of Vancouver Island. But the case that they're really trying to make is that it's Area G, it's the west coast that has been the most impacted by changes to the Pacific Salmon Treaty. And that's why it makes sense to direct and focus efforts to help fishermen and coastal communities for the West Coast. So that was the main substance of the call. There was a specific proposal that's been developed that we discussed, and I will circulate both the notes and the proposal to you, the Regional District Board. And they are taking this forward to DFO to discuss it tomorrow on Thursday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We did have a good discussion too, just about the fact that there hasn't really been a lot of contact or communication between West Coast Aquatic and the Governance Board and the regional district. So I did suggest to them, I did tell them that obviously I would give you this update today, and that I would suggest that maybe it is time for either a fisheries committee meeting or to ask the board or representatives of the board to come to us in the form of a delegation and just give a general update on where things stand. So I would love to hear your opinions if you think that that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so that brings us to the AVICC. Director Cote. Oh, sorry, Dr. Roberts, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thanks to Mayor Osborne for attending that meeting. I received no notification of it. And I would really like to participate in as much as, you know, the impact for us is for the whole West Coast is so important, and for the fishery as well. So thank you for that.
Great, thanks. I'll make sure, I know you're the alternate, but I'll talk to Tanya and ask that you just be put on the distribution list so that you automatically receive everything. Thank you for that.
Okay. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thanks. AVICC, the next meeting is June 19th. We've been discussing what to do because we couldn't have our annual general meeting, convention, elections, resolutions, and we'll be discussing further as to how we can move forward. It's mandatory that we have our AGM every year and elections. So looking forward to some good conversation on how to do that. We were thinking about trying to piggyback on UBCM, but it's very doubtful that UBCM will be hosting in person this year. So we'll have more information on that coming up. Thanks.
Thanks. Next up, I have the Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee. Director McNabb.
So the Beaver Creek water system is operating under pressure as we would like it to be, and things are flowing along quite well. I can move into my WEWAG report, if you like. WEWAG meeting is tomorrow. I did my homework. It's 103 pages that I've read. now I know all about goslings and mushroom patches and all kinds of other things. And I learned that logging is not just about operating a power saw. So it will be an interesting discussion. I can see why production of logs is as expensive as it is, in that they have to make all these reports and somebody has to stand out there and do that. So I certainly salute them for that. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I was just contacted by Director Shannon. She has a report on something relating to, I believe it's the Grow Local program. So I was wondering if we could get a motion to accept her report or to add her report to item I.
So moved.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Seconded by Director Cole. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, Director Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to update the board on the Grow Local program that happened in the Valley this year. It was a new initiative collectively by the Farmers Institute, the Transition Town, the Alberni Food Hub, and the ACRD What's on Your Fork. So Heather Shobe was a big part of this, and essentially what it was a program to get people into backyard food production and gardening, particularly people who've never gardened before. So I just wanted to update that they took orders and through donations were able to do a sliding scale for cost so that it was available to people of all income levels in the Valley. And they took orders for and distributed around 100 garden packs, whether it was for container gardening or in ground. And this all happened on a very rainy day on May 2nd at the Harbor Key. The city was great. They helped set up tents and provided vests and cones and things like that. And everything went really well. And they're looking at doing again next year. It seemed to be very well received by the public. And yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that that was going on because it was new. It happened really quickly, but hoping to make it an annual event.
Great, thank you for that. Any further comments? Seeing none, we do have a motion to receive all the member reports. Okay, moved by Director Cole. Do we have a seconder? Director Shannon, thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, we don't have any unfinished business. I do not believe we have any late business. I'm wondering, Wendy, do we have any items coming from the responses email address?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were no comments or input received at the email address responses@acrd.bc.ca regarding the agenda items today.
Okay. Do we have, I didn't check the participants. Do we have Dave or anyone from the press online if they have any comments? I don't see anybody. Okay, I think we're okay then. All right, so the next item will be to move in camera for the reasons listed on the agenda.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair. Director Coots.
Thank you, Director Coots. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. And just for our records, I'll state that the reasons are under sections 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district. 90.1C, labor relations or employee relations. 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a regional district service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the board, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district if they were held in public. So that's that. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, just let me, I have the in-camera agenda up on my computer